Ladies and gentlemen, we are a week or two into version 2.5, and this is a patch that's only going to have one limited unit, Phrolova. And I thought it'd be a good time for us to break down the overall pull value of all the limited 5 stars in this game, knowing that there are a couple of very popular releases coming up with Augusta and Yuno, and of course, a lot of reruns as well. So without further ado, we're just going to be going through every single limited character that's been released in the history of this game and give you all a value breakdown of how much they're actually worth. Because in this game, there are a couple of units that have fallen a bit to the wayside, while others are aging pretty damn well with time. So let's go ahead, let's get right on into it, and start off with none other than the first limited unit we've ever had, Jiyan. And we'll just be going with a S to D ranking. We might do some adjustments later, and then move forward from there. So yeah, first things first, we're gonna have Jiyan. I'm going to go ahead and for Jiyan, I'm gonna put him either at the top of A or at the bottom of S for now. And the reason for that is pretty simple. Jiyan in particular is a unit that has the potential to keep growing, to actually age a bit better with time. And the issue right now is that he simply has not gotten his 5-star limited sub DPS support yet. He is right now, I believe, the only character in the game that does not have a limited sub DPS. And the thing is, we have confirmation that Augusta is a heavy attacker. From the Wuthering Waves reset, there's a token that gives electro and heavy attack damage. We've gotten confirmation that that's her role. And a lot of people are speculating that Yuno will actually be a unit that ends up buffing Augusta because of the whole sun and moon dynamic. And so if Yuno does buff heavy attack, then she might actually be the unit that saves him. And once we get further details on her kit, that might mean that he bumps up to S or even further. But that's on some actual unreleased content. Let's talk about the present state of the game and why I think he's actually an A. Jiyan is a unit that functionally does pretty much everything in Wuthering Waves. He's a main DPS character that was the first ever released, and one of his big roles is the fact that he provides consistent grouping as well as a pretty significant amount of on-field damage. And as you're able to utilize his kit more and more and, you know, do something like a Qinglong cancel while he's in the middle of his liberation, the end result is that his damage scales into pretty much all of the different endgame modes, and you should be able to, as long as the game modes are balanced, clear everything that's available. And the thing is that while his weapon options aren't the greatest in terms of at least, you know, using the standard broadblade, like using a weapon like Lester's Razor isn't going to be that great on him, he's still actually relatively usable on something like Jinhsi signature, or of course, he's going to perform the best on his own. And the thing is that he is naturally going to get the best results on his weapon. Everything else that you're going to be using or have available will pretty much be able to clear, even with a lustrous razor that's well invested. The other great part about Jiyan is the fact that he has a sub DPS unit available to him called Mortify that is perhaps one of the best ones in the game. And in the current state of free-to-play teams, or close to free-to-play, where you run Mortify, Jiyan, and then like a Shorekeeper or Verena in the third slot, this team has been available since either 1.0 or 1.3 and is still a team that people use to clear endgame content to this day. And he is a unit, like I mentioned before with the Augusta Yuno situation, he's a unit that only has space to grow. But this is also the thing. He doesn't have any active banners right now. As far as I'm concerned, he's not scheduled for version 2.5, and we don't know about what the banners are going to be in 2.6. And so you can also just wait to see what Yuno's kit is on those live streams, and then see what the elevated ranking for him is over here. I would just have to say, he's comfortably at an A for his performance right now. But if Yuno does have the buff that he's looking for with the design of her kit, he easily goes into an S because he's still top tier. But like I mentioned before, his damage quite isn't at the level of other DPS characters that do have their limited 5-star teammate. So that's just something to keep in mind. We'll keep him at the top of A for now, but we will revisit this at some point in the future. Now, let's move on to our next unit in this scenario, and this one's going to be Yinlin. It's one of these two. This unit kind of sucks. I'm going to be entirely real with you here. This is my pick for the unit that needs like a buff. She needs like a rework of some kind. There needs to be something done to make her less clunky. There needs to be something done to either like boost her damage even more, or at least just give her like, I don't know, some other synergy in some other teams. The problem with Yinlin right now is that her damage isn't relatively sky high for a sub DPS unit, and her buffs, while okay, kind of only work for another limited 5-star character, Xiangli Yao, but Xiangli Yao has his own specifications, his own like weaknesses that make the combination of these two not actually particularly strong. The end result is that she is never an optimal pick for any character in the game. Xiangli Yao works better with other characters, and the end result is that she's kind of just there doing nothing on most people's accounts. People pulled her a ton in version 1.0 because they thought that this unit was going to be like power creep immune. They saw that she was like a sub DPS. They saw that she had this outro skill. They saw that she was a buffer, and everyone was saying, oh, she's going to age gracefully with time. Unfortunately, the opposite is what has taken place, and I have kind of just forgotten that this unit exists on my account nowadays, and I think that's the state for most people. However, when it comes to her weapon, that's a different situation. Pull Yinlin's weapon, don't actually pull her. We'll be mentioning weapons occasionally throughout the video, just depending on the character's kit, but we will have a separate video, separate tier list on weapon pull value later on. So this is a bit of a preview for that. This weapon is fucking busted. It's the second best in slot for pretty much every rectifier user in the game, and it's almost like you're not looking forward to her when her rerun comes up. You're looking forward to this thing instead. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. When it comes to Yinlin as a whole, the coordinated attack set, you guys remember this one, right? I feel like it was supposed to be something where with its big buff of 80% coordinated attack damage and its 20% attack buff as well, this was supposed to be something that like Yinlin used to like bring her back into the meta. It hasn't done the job. She needs something stronger. It's just, you either replace her with Changli and the Xiangli Yao teams, or it's like you're not... I can't think of any team where she's used. I'm sorry. I legitimately can't. Maybe like a Jinhsi team, but then you already have Cantarella and you already have Zhezhi to fill in that role as well. So she's always a second place, and if that brief level of versatility is something that you're looking for, maybe you can go for it, but I don't think that's something a lot of people need nowadays, and I think that her value, especially for a newer player, is simply not that high. Just choose a better teammate or a better partner for the DPS that you're trying to work, that you're trying to fit around her. There's always a better pick, and that's really the unfortunate state about this unit. So C, potentially even D, because do realize, ladies and gentlemen, this is a comparison about limited characters, and I think she's one of the least, if not the least valuable one in the game. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. She does have some company. Now let's move on to Jinhsi, the first Sentinel Resonator, the Magistrate of Jinzhou. I think she's still an S. I think that Jinhsi is closer to the lower end of S. I know she's going to be the first character that we actually rank in the S tier, but I think that her lack of flexibility with some teams and the fact that she also technically doesn't have her dedicated support yet means that she's in a somewhat similar state to Jiyan. She still has a little bit of room to grow, but her baseline level of performance on the active patch is still relatively high. And the reason for that is Jinhsi is a unit that basically requires coordinated attacks on your team to reach her full damage potential, and she already has 2 units in the game that are able to fill that role for her. She's got Cantarella, and she's also got Zhezhi. The unfortunate part about Jinhsi right now, and why her rating is actually a little bit lower, is that Zhezhi and Cantarella both actually have teams where they perform better without Jinhsi. Cantarella in the Phrolova Roccia Echo team, and then Zhezhi performs better in the Carlotta team, right, with Shorekeeper. That's the spot. And so the thing is, depending on how you pulled on some recent banners, for example, if you got your Phrolova and you got your Cantarella, and then you got your Zhezhi, and then you got your Carlotta, you might want to throw in Jinhsi, because then you'll have spectral damage coverage. But if you already have like a Phoebe, or you already have a Zani, then, well, the appeal of Jinhsi just got way lower. And so if you don't have a spectral damage character yet, she's always going to be a great option. And to some people, right, she might be one of the more free-to-play friendly. But if you're looking for the most free-to-play friendly spectral option of them all, you always have Phoebe, who you can just slot in with Spectral Rover, and then either Farina or Shorekeeper, or like a Mortifi on the team as well. And so Jinhsi actually has gotten beaten on like the budget Spectro side, and on the premium Spectro side, right? When you get the Zani and the Phoebe combination, then she kind of gets beaten over here as well. And so the end result is that Jinhsi is like, I think one of the gold standards in terms of like a DPS that performs, but she's not like the best one ever, specifically in game modes like Wuthering Waves. And that's what makes a bit of a strong argument for her potentially being bumped down to A. She's kind of one of the worst Wuthering Waves characters in the game. I'm going to be honest with you. She requires some pretty sweaty gameplay to be able to ensure like some higher level scores in that game mode because of, well, the fact that she deals massive bursts of damage and the enemies don't have that much HP. Yes, I know she clears. I know she can still clear. I never said that she couldn't, but you have to play her way differently than you do in game modes like the Tower of Adversity. And the end result is that it can be a little bit unachievable for a fair number of players. And so when you got to put in more work into doing your clears, do different things, practice a lot more to get the same result that other characters are getting with way less effort, way less learning, blah, 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 so on and so forth, that's going to factor into the final score. And Jinhsi's performance in WuWa is a step below many other characters. And that's gonna, you know, we'll put her at the top of A for now. I think we've given enough reasonings for it. I think especially with the WuWa reset that we have right now, I think it could be a bit of an issue. Now, let's go ahead, let's move on and talk about the next unit that we have on our list, and that one's gonna be Changli. This is a bit of a sticky situation. The rating of Changli is entirely 1,000,000% going to depend on the other units that you have on your account. And the thing is, if we're trying to think about it as a baseline, she either goes into S, depending on the units that you have, or she goes into like B or C. And we'll talk about both use cases and then probably just drop her off in A to give you a bit of an average. Changli's spot in the meta has elevated dramatically with the release of newer characters in version 2.0. Changli, before version like 2.1, was a character that had maybe like one team that was pretty sweaty to play, and the end result was that not a lot of players actually got the full potential out of her. But with the release of units like Brant, who provided an outro skill buff that she really liked with fusion damage and resonance skill, and then the release of Lupa, who's coming in with some of the best buffs that a fusion team can have, right? Look at this fusion resistance ignore and all that good glory, the 20% fusion damage bonus, and then like her Sonata set that gives fusion damage to the entire team, and then like her weapon too. When you combine like all of the pieces of like Exodia, you get like Brant, you get Lupa, you get Changli, and you have them all together. This team is absolutely bonkers. It's one of the strongest, if not the strongest team in the game. And there's a lot of different ways to play it. It's like the gameplay potential of having Brant, Lupa, and Changli is insane. However, this is the catch. If you don't have these two units, I don't think new players, or really any player, is going to get that much value out of her. I'm going to be real with you. If you don't have those other two, I don't think you're going to have very much fun with this unit. Because you're going to think of like ways to make her work with your other DPS. And while you might find that process fun, those teams are not really going to be as strong as any other team you're using for the combination, right? One team that a lot of people are always talking about, right, is like, oh, I love doing the Xiangli Carlotta team. This is like the most fun thing ever. It's a fun team to play, but damage-wise, it kind of sucks balls. Like, Carlotta has a better team going with Zhezhi, and then Changli has a better team herself getting paired with the fusion team. And while it might be fun to play, absolutely great, if we're talking about value in terms of, you know, if you're somebody that's struggling to clear content, or, you know, you just want the best ways to be able to clear content, this is not it. It's incredibly high effort for like the same or lower level results. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's what makes her both a B and an S at the same time. She's a B if you got if you have none of the members of her team. She's an S if you have like a Brant, and then like an A if you have a Lupa. And so what we'll be doing is kind of like putting her in the middle over here, kind of taking the average of like both situations. Just know that her score can dramatically decrease or increase depending on the characters that you already have on your account. And so if you're somebody with Brant and Lupa, she's an S. You probably should pull her. I'm just telling you, if you have both those units, you probably should pull her. But if you have none of them, she's maybe a B or C. And if you have one of them, an A or S. And that's just kind of like how it is from my experience, getting more familiar with her kit, seeing her potential, but then at the end of the day, right, just being honest about what the actual end performance is. And if you're not using her in the fusion team, it's a lot of squeezing to get a little bit of juice. That's an analogy. We're not actually squeezing her. All right, now let's move on to the next unit. We got Xiangli Yao. He's not that good anymore. He's not that good anymore because Xiangli Yao unfortunately has one of Xiangli Yao's flaws is in his kit design. And let me just talk to you all about why I'm rating him a bit lower. You guys might be a little bit offended right now. Xiangli Yao has a fatal flaw. It's not his damage. It's not his moveset. It's not like his CC. It's not his animations. Not any of that. It's the time his rotation takes. Doing a triple hypercube rotation on this unit takes fucking forever. He has an ultimate duration that's about 24 seconds and a cooldown of 25. Unfortunately, his rotation takes almost around 14 seconds to do as a DPS. To get off all 3 of his hypercubes and do that all in the duration of an outro skill buff. The issue is that if this unit gets hit once, has to delay any of his attacks, or quite frankly, just doesn't rotate at like optimal speed, outro buffs will fall off and he'll lose damage. And the thing is, his rotation does similar damage to other DPS characters. He just takes like 2 or 3 seconds longer to do his rotation. And the end result is that as a hyper carry, he kind of just falls off. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. He literally has some of the lowest hyper carry damage in the game, even with a tailored limited DPS to go alongside him. And this is one of the reasons for why Yinlin is so low. It's because when you combine these two together, the team is just not really that good. And it's a fair step lower than almost all of the other hypercarry teams in the game. And that's just a fact. Even with his signature, right? Even with Yinlin on their signature and all that, I've done the testing. I've experienced it. This team has just kind of fallen off. And it's due to the struggles in Yinlin's kit with like her concerto, her rotation speed, all of that, and her clunkiness. And then you have the rotation timing issue of this guy. And you might be thinking, oh, Saint, he just sounds like a piece of dog shit now that you pointed out all his weaknesses. Why is he still like a decent unit still? And that's because the trade-off for Xiangli Yao and his long-ass rotation time is because he applies the most CC out of like any DPS character in the game. He literally time slows the enemy 4 times during his rotation, and he's one of the safest units to play as a result of that. And so you can see the reasons for why his weakness is in his kit, because he's got benefits elsewhere. But unfortunately, right, it's like in the current state where people have gotten a lot better at dodging, they've generally gotten better at the game. Some people can make use of like his utility, but for a lot of people, the utility kind of just serves no purpose because they're dodging, not really getting hit anyways, or like, you know, just tanking certain attacks and doing all of that. He also has an incredible amount of gap closing in his kit. You're guaranteed to land almost every single attack in his rotation, unlike other units. So he's extremely consistent, right? He's an extremely consistent character that will basically have all of his damage on the table for every single rotation. But if you get hit, you make a mistake or two, or you just don't press his buttons fast enough, you get a massive fall off. And that kind of is just, compared to other characters in the game, I really do think that there are generally just better picks that you can spend your limited pulls on. But maybe in the future, when like a support that increases attack speed, something like that comes out, he'll feel a lot more satisfied to use. One last thing that I'll mention about him is that he has a lot of use cases in quick swap teams because of his long ass animations, but all the characters that he ends up quick swapping with can just have better teammates. Changli, for example, we just covered her, right? She just has better teammates available outside of the quick swap Xiangli Yao team. And so it's kind of like, if you're pulling him just to quick swap him with people, you could just pull a different unit and then the team will be better. And that's kind of just the truth on the matter. So yeah, now, since we're finished with Xiangli Yao, let's start talking about Zhezhi a little bit. She's kind of high. She's kind of high for one particular reason. This unit is one of the most powerful utility units that currently exists in the game. And let me just break down what makes her so strong. So Zhezhi is a unit that was released in version 1.2 that a lot of people didn't really find a lot of value from. And that's perfectly fine, because she had only worked with one character in the game during her release. It was Jinhsi. And now that we've gone ahead and we've had the release of a character like Carlotta, well, we've seen the full power of Zhezhi on display. Because Zhezhi does one thing in particular that makes her really strong. It's this inherent skill. She provides 15 resonance energy to the incoming resonator, while also having a full powered outro skill that buffs Glacio and resonance skill damage. The unfortunate part is that there's not a lot of like resonance skill damage dealers in the game, but she is like a sub-in, right, in some situations for like, you could try using her on a Phrolova team. But her performance on a team with a character like Carlotta or a character like Jinhsi is so high that they're some of the top meta teams in the game. And with her as the best teammate for some of the best teams in the game, and that resonance energy utility that she provides, and perhaps most importantly of all, right, one of the smoothest rotations in the game while she's actually on field. Like this unit, right? She's got like her triple jump cancel tech, all of that. She's smooth as butter to play once you figure out how to get like her more complex rotation going. We'll just see if we can like demonstrate it real fast. Yeah, we'll go against the Dragon of Dirge. Yeah, this is surely not gonna end badly. I'll just show you all like a little bit about like her jump cancel tech. Hopefully I don't embarrass myself. But yeah, it's been a while since I've done it. She's got like this tech over here where, you know, you just build up your stuff. You press E, you throw it out, right? And then you can just like jump in between your casts and then get it out like a lot faster. I think I got like almost all of them there. That was pretty close to perfect. You implement that tech, and then now you have like turned the character into an absolute demon. She is the best, or one of the best sub DPS characters in the game for a reason. Super fast rotation time, extremely evasive, very hard to hit, very safe to play, and an extremely consistent rotation, and some of the best buffs the game has ever seen. It's kind of like no argument why I think she's at the top, but one thing you guys gotta factor in is that for sub DPS characters specifically, their value is going to depend on the main DPS characters that you have. If you don't have a Jinhsi and you don't have a Carlotta, bro, she's gonna be like a D, okay? She's going to basically be like a D because she's not going to be usable with any character on your account. Or if she is usable, she's just gonna be worse than other options. But if you do have them, she's incredibly high. And I think for sub DPS units, it doesn't make a particularly large amount of sense to do like an average rating of them with or without the character, but it does make sense for main DPS ones. So that is something to keep in mind. We'll be keeping her an S because there's no point in ever pulling a sub DPS character without the accompanying main DPS. There's no reason to ever do that. So we're only going to rate sub DPSs with that condition. All right. So with that in mind, we covered Zhezhi. You said our disclaimers. Now let's talk a little bit about Shorekeeper. Yeah, she's above Zhezhi. And this is the thing. Shorekeeper is going to be the highest rated character in the game, but I think it's also fair to say that her rating has gone down from before. And the reason for that is Shorekeeper does this one main thing on your teams. She's able to support pretty much every single team in the game. When you pull her in any content that requires two teams like the TOA or two teams like Wuthering Waves, you know that you have one of those 6 slots filled out because she can be used pretty much anywhere. But the thing is, even though she provides buffs to like crit rate, buffs to overall damage, and all of that, damage amp over here, and even like the built-in dodges, she's not the best support for every single team. At least now with the new recent releases. With characters like Cantarella, Brant, Lupa, all of that, we're seeing some new teams actually forming that don't involve Shorekeeper at all. that in a way has diminished her value, but that also in a way has somewhat increased it. Because if you're an owner of Brant or you're an owner of Cantarella, the reality of the situation is that you're probably gonna want to assemble their premium team. Where for Cantarella, right, you get the Phrolova. Or Brant's premium team, you get the Lupa. And when that occurs, you're still going to have a team on the other side in all of this 2-team content that you're going to need to actually get going. And Shorekeeper is typically going to be the pick in all of those situations. The release of units like Brant and Cantarella have basically, in a sense, actually robbed Verena mostly of her role. But similarly, if you don't have Shorekeeper, you can just sub in Verena for the second side because she's an incredibly strong unit. So you could actually make the argument that if you have Brant Cantarella, you never actually need to pull Shorekeeper. Oh, right, this is also the other situation. I completely forgot about this team. Yeah, you have the Arrow team with Cartethyia, Ciaccona, and Arrow Rover. So that's actually 3 teams where Shorekeeper is not the best in slot and you don't need to run her. And so that's 3 reasons for why you might just use Verena and not actually use Shorekeeper. The fact that she is a general support that can be plugged into pretty much every single team is going to be the reason why she's S. But if you start building out the other like elemental teams, I'm just gonna be honest here, ladies and gentlemen, there's like, her value is progressively going down patch over patch. I still think she's the best, but there are plenty of cases for plenty of accounts where they won't miss her. It won't be a problem if you don't pull her. And so, this is something to keep in mind. I think Shorekeeper's value actually goes down to an A, registering that Verena's an option if you have the Cartethyia team, if you have the Cantarella team, if you have the Brant team. But chances are, people aren't going to have all of those units and all of those teams built out. And that's why she's going to be S. Right? That's why she's still going to be an S. But if you're somebody like me, who, you know, is paying a little bit of money and collecting every single character in the game, well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't used her in a while. Because I'm playing Arrow Rover. Because I'm playing Cantarella. Because I'm playing Brant. And so I just haven't used her in a while. I'm just telling you how it is when you have all of those other units. So that's why we are showing like multiple different placements, because once again, like everyone's gonna have a different account, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm just providing all the different perspectives here. So with that out of the way, now let's talk a little bit about Camellya. Yeah, Camellya is still an S for me. Yeah, Camellya is still an S for me, and it's quite simple. Right? The reason why I have Camellya so much higher than Jiyan is because Camellya has one of like the best free-to-play 5-star and like limited main DPS combos in the game. Her on Emerald of Genesis is still enough to clear content, especially in the Tower of Adversity. And then when you get her and you put her on her signature, right, her power level only grows. And she also has the same exact sort of like free-to-play friendly 4-star option that Jiyan does with Mortefi. She's got San Hua. But the thing is, Camellya also has her premium sub-DPS option in Roccia as well, right? Where Roccia does like way more damage than San Hua, and the end result of the teams is that, well, they perform. I know some people really don't like this unit, but yes, Camellya is better with this one than San Hua. And the end result is that, guys, this character is still incredibly valuable. And her being so flexible, so good with 4-star units, and also having the incredible option of Emerald of Genesis, she's one of the reasons why nobody pulled Phrolova. Because why the fuck would you pull another Havoc DPS when you have one that works for like half the budget? You just put a San Hua and a Verena or a Shorekeeper with her, and then she'll go blow up all the content in the game. You're like, you know, when you pull this unit, you're like, ah man, I want the Cantarella too. I want the Roccia as well. I don't think her potential is maybe as high, right, as like a fully vertically built out Havoc team or vertically built out Arrow Erosion team or something like that. But you can't get results. She is literally the most free-to-play friendly unit in the game, at least from like a weapon and a team angle. Yes, she does cost limited pulls to get. Yes, Havoc Rover is free, but Havoc Rover is not close to as good as her, or as smooth to play as her either. Havoc Rover is a great free-to-play option, but they trade that free-to-playness for one of the most clunky, unmanageable kits in the game. Hers is a lot more fluid and easy to use. But you still gotta factor in Havoc Rover does exist, and so she's not going to be like an S+ or like the Giga highest one, purely based off that alone. But she's also very good in Wuthering Waves as well. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like she's a well-rounded character, great free-to-play option, has the limited 5-star sub DPS as well, room for expansion into the future. I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, she'll be at the top. Now, let's talk about another DPS unit, Carlotta. I'm gonna put Carlotta below Camellya. And some of you might be wondering, oh boy, isn't she better than Camellya? Doesn't she do more damage? And the thing is, Carlotta's AoE is not that good. And especially as Wuthering Waves scales up its difficulty, the effectiveness of Carlotta in that game mode is going to drop dramatically. But Carlotta is, without a doubt, the easiest character in the fucking game to play. I'm convinced that if you have this unit and a pulse, you should be able to clear holograms. You should be able to clear the end game in this game. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to, because this, like, I'm pretty sure you could write a script to play this unit because almost all of her attacks have a fucking iframe. Literally an invincibility frame on like 90% of her rotation. And so functionally, you should almost never get hit. And she even has like built-in kiting and dodging on her liberation. The only time when she's vulnerable, and she's like continually backing away from the enemy as she's firing. So it's like the unit is automatic. The unit is incredibly strong, but the unit's free-to-play options aren't as strong as others. Carlotta with a Tao Chi or a Yang Yang is weaker than a Camellya with a Sanhua. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And so that'll be the reason why I am rating Carlotta a little bit lower than Camellya. Yes, she's incredibly strong. Yes, she's great. She's safe. But her free-to-play teams aren't necessarily as good as Camellya's. And let's just be honest here. She's not as good as Camellya, not as comprehensive, requires a little bit more work to pilot in Wuthering Waves. And that's something with weekly resetting or monthly resetting rewards. One fair thing to note, though, is that Carlotta will do a lot better on holograms than a Camellya, but holograms are like permanent, so I never really factored them in too much into the rating of content like this, because you don't lose anything for not doing holograms. You lose a significant amount for, well, not doing TOA or Wuthering Waves. So that's just something to keep in mind. Again, great unit, but I still think less valuable than Camellya for the average account. Now, let's move on to Roccia. Y'all might have guessed it. Y'all might have guessed it from the discussion, but because I've been glazing Sanhua so much and talking about how good Sanhua is, well, the end result is that Sanhua Supermax can't necessarily be that valuable. Because if you're putting the Supermax onto something that's already really good, then it can't be that much better without breaking the game. And Roccia does not break the game. Ladies and gentlemen, Roccia's pull value has not really changed that much from prior analysis. Even though she has a new best-in-slot team with like the Havoc Echo skill lineup. The thing is, if you don't put Roccia... Let me just recontextualize. This is the Havoc team. This is the Havoc Echo skill team that a lot of people consider to be one of the strongest in the game. You can swap out Roccia for like a Danjin, and the team's performance is almost identical. You can swap out Roccia for so many different characters, and the team's performance is almost identical. You can even put in Sanhua instead of Roccia, and the team actually performs similarly. The unfortunate part about the design of Roccia is that she is one of the most unnecessary characters in the fucking game. And I think that to a degree, they might have buffed Wuthering Waves and made it harder just so that people think they didn't get scammed pulling Roccia. I'm not even joking at this point, right? I think that they might have actually made Wuthering Waves more difficult just to try to sell this unit. Because I don't think she's very good at all. I think she's one of the worst TOA units in the game. Yes, she gets more damage than Sanhua, but I would literally prefer to do less damage and not get interrupted in the air just playing this unit. Yes, she's incredibly good in Wuthering Waves, but arguably worse than Sanhua in the TOA, just based off the quality of life alone of getting knocked out of the air, pressing escape, and then restarting the stage. Because that will happen playing Roccia the most out of any other team in the game. Just getting hit in the middle of your jumps, exit, and then restart. I know you've all done it. I know it's something you've experienced in your day-to-day if you have this unit. And I know there are a lot of people that have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about because they didn't feel like pulling her. And the thing is, I still don't think you need to pull her. I still think she's the most unnecessary unit in the game still. And I'm telling you this with the most well-built Roccia on the server. Brother, the build on this unit is absolute. I even have her fucking signature. I'm probably the most qualified person to be telling you this is a dog shit unit. Look at this build. 130 ER, 72% crit, 73, 280 crit damage. You want to see the heavy attack, brother? It's 47. That's her main damage type. It's 47.2%. Do you want to know what it looks like when her weapon's active? I'm literally at 95.2% heavy attack damage. This is the best Roccia build on the server, brother. And I'm telling you, this character sucks balls. I have her at her max potential, and she's not good. She's not good. I regret every single tuner, every single investment I've ever made in this unit, because there was so much input, and there's almost no output because of, like, it's just, she's not designed to be a really big damage dealer. And the thing is, she even has more hoops in her kit, where her attack buff doesn't function properly unless she's at 70% crit, and then her skill tree is filled with crit damage. And so, to get above 70%, you need the most cracked echo rolls on the planet. Look at this, 6.9, 10.5, 9.3, 9.3, 7.5. That's like a 9 average. And I am 3% above the 70 that I need. Brother, if you roll all 6.3s, you will have like fucking 65% crit rate. Like 64% crit rate. Getting a crit rate echo on every piece. That is what I'm telling you. She is a pain in the ass to build. She's a pain in the ass to play. I don't even know if pulling her weapon even makes a meaningful difference in her DPS. I switch between her weapon and Xiangli Yao's all the time, and I don't notice a difference in the enemy HP bars because she does so little damage. And then you're able to use Sanhua or Dan Jin instead of her in every single team she's run in, and have almost like a 5% loss in performance on those teams. And the only thing she does is provide a fuck ton of grouping. That's it. That's all she does, is provide grouping. And that shit is kind of just completely useless in the TOA, and it's only useful in Wuthering Waves. And that's my headcanon for why this Wuthering Waves reset is significantly more difficult than the last one, with all these fucked up tokens over here. That's my headcanon for why. Because God knows and Kuro knows, nobody is pulling this piece of shit. And I don't recommend that you do either, because I think that she is, without a doubt, the lowest value 5-star in the game. She's actually even worse than Yinlin. She might belong in D, to be honest. And I think I've explained all the reasons for why everyone kind of despises this fucking character. I think that she is the biggest miss, design, playstyle, animation, kit-wise, the game has ever seen. You can't really disagree with anything that I'm saying, except maybe like the preference stuff about like design and stuff. But gameplay wise, stay away from this fucking midget. All right, now let's move on to Phoebe. She's better than Jinhsi for a free-to-play, and she also has scalability to turn into a sub-DPS if you ever end up pulling Zani. I think that you have a very, very, very appealing scenario available with Phoebe. Because A, Phoebe should be like the first, in my opinion, Phoebe should be the first Spectro DPS a person pulls. You pull Phoebe, and now you're able to pair them alongside Spectro Rover, and then you either run Mortifi or a Verena, and you will clear all the content in the game that's not Spectro immune, right? You'll get all of them. And then if you decide, hey, I just want to deal more damage, then you pull Zani. Or you decide, well, I've got Spectro damage covered. I don't need any more Spectro. And then you just don't pull Zani and you don't pull Jinhsi. And then you're kind of good for the rest of the game. However, Phoebe does have one fatal flaw. And that is that she is the worst Wuthering Waves character in the game. And I think from that perspective, if you're not willing to go ahead and pull Ciaccona to loosen some of her weaknesses in Wuthering Waves, yeah, you're not using this character in that game mode. You can also use the logic and reasoning. Oh, I'll pull Zani so that Zani can be used in WuWa. You know, Phoebe's going to be the sub DPS for Zani while she's in her confession mode. And so it's kind of like Phoebe's really good in the TOA, really good in holograms, but then sucks balls in WuWa. But for WuWa, you can pull a Zani or you can pull a Ciaccona to make her usable again. And so she kind of is like a bit of a package deal where she's the most free-to-play friendly unit for TOA and holograms, but then she does require a teammate to function in Wuthering Waves. It's a little bit of like a tricky scenario, but on the flip side, if you've already got WuWa covered, because you got like, I don't know, a Camellya, and then a Changli or a Jiyan, and you kind of got those two sides figured out anyways, then you can just sort of keep Phoebe as like an exclusively or an exclusively TOA character, and nothing's that big of a deal either. But at the end of the day, right, it's great that she has options, it's great that she has such a strong performance at a baseline, and what's also great is that she has like probably some of the most fucking weapon options in the game. Of course, she's got her own SIG, which is going to be great, but she's also got String Master, which she should probably have, and her performance on String Master versus her SIG, I think that there's functionally no difference between the two. I think that the DPS of these weapons, they're actually identical on her when she's being used as a DPS, but then she even has a 4-star option as well with the fish thing. You know, it's a pretty good free-to-play weapon for her. So yeah, there might be some people that never pulled her but then got this fish thing, and then she'll be good to go. So yeah, we've talked about some of like the stipulations, the conditions. That's why she's actually going to be close to the bottom of S, not at the top and not above these two, because she is so unforgivably bad in Wuthering Waves, where the enemy waves respawn, the enemies won't have Spectral Frazzle on them, and she won't function properly as a main DPS. But then you just turn her into a sub DPS, where she applies Spectral Frazzle on her own and supports other units. Or you pull Ciaccona and have her with her Liberation provide Spectral Frazzle stacks 20 times over its duration, and then that'll solve it too. So yeah, that's Phoebe. Bottom of S. Now let's talk a little bit about Brant. He's a little bit rough. He's a bit of a rough person to rate. I think he's somewhere in the middle of S. And this is the thing. Brant's in the middle of S, perhaps on the top end of S, for one reason. Role consolidation. Where, when you have Brant, you now no longer need Shorekeeper as much on your account. Brant being a healer that's actually viable, a sustain that's actually viable, a shielder as well, and his ability to enable so many other teams in the game, while also functioning as a hyper carry at the same time, is a lot of different roles and a lot of value that you can get from one unit in particular. And the thing is that this guy might have the most teams in the game. He can be used as a hyper carry with Sanhua. He can be used as like a sustain in the Lupa teams. And he can be used as a dual DPS with the Changli. And then he can just buff any person as well that has resonant skill damage, like even a Carlotta, all at the same time. And the thing is that he frees up your Shorekeeper, frees up your Farina to do a lot of different things. But the unfortunate part is that this guy is one of the hardest to build characters in the game. You need a couple of Infinity Stones to really make him realize his full potential. The first being his weapon, because this motherfucker scales off ER. And the only other ER option in the game, well, isn't really an offensive one. It just provides utility. And so Brant either needs another cheaper option that gives ER but then also boosts damage, or you're kind of using a signature, or you're doing like some weird Molten Rift build with Emerald of Genesis, which can still be viable, but you know, it just feels a little stinky. And then his echo rolls. Well, you gotta have some good echo rolls on him, because you want ER and then double crit on almost every single piece to be able to maximize his ER to attack buff conversion. If you thought building Roccia was hard, he's also pretty hard to build. The Fool's Troop has the hardest to build characters in the game. That's one thing that I'm glad that Kuro hasn't done repeatedly, is put in these sort of like stat conversions into the build to such a high degree. Yeah, because 280 ER, 70% crit on Roccia, they're both pretty high numbers. And that makes like optimizing their builds feel a lot worse than other characters because of how specific the substats are. This guy has really low base attack, right? 787 versus, like, let's just look at a Lupa, 974, right? Bro has like 100 less base attack, and so attack percentage rolls aren't even that good on him. So it's like his possibilities, right, for great echo rolls is way more constrained compared to other units. But the payoff of him being fully invested in and reaching a high potential, guys, I'm going to be real here. The payoff is so high and he's so flexible. It can be used in so many different teams to such great results. We're talking about valuable units, right? He's a lot of work, but the payoff for him is tremendous. He might give you the most like bang for your buck out of any unit in the game. I'm trying to think about it right now. If you were like combining a limited weapon, super sweaty echo rolls, all of that, and you're looking for the character that gives you the most for maximum investment as like a low spender or free to play, it would have to be Brant. I think it would have to be Brant in terms of what you get out of it. So yeah, that'll be that one. Now let's move on to the next sub DPS healer hybrid unit thing going on, and that's gonna be Cantarella. I don't think the team's that good. Or I don't think she's that great. Maybe she's an A. I'm gonna put her in B for now. And this is the thing, right? Cantarella, you could draw some similarities between Cantarella and Brant. The issue over here is that Cantarella just does not even deal close to as much damage as Brant. And the strength of Cantarella's kit is actually tied to this unique mechanic that she has, where she casts a bunch of echo skills across her rotation. She does it like 4 times, and what she does is she really enables a character like Phrolova to do her enhanced attacks while Hikate's on the field. Because, well, whenever a teammate uses an echo skill, she'll do an attack, right? So, unfortunately, a lot of Cantarella's strength and the benefits of her kit are like tied to her being Phrolova's teammate, which is like the opposite of Brant, where Brant's the person that enables Changli. Cantarella gets enabled by Phrolova. If I were to be entirely honest with you, out of this Havoc lineup, Phrolova's the most flexible character out of all of these. Out of the Fusion lineup with like Lupa, Brant, Changli, Brant's the most flexible character out of all of these. And so, because of how tied Cantarella is to Phrolova's kit, and the fact that, well, her damage really isn't like that insanely ridiculous, and her healing is like okay, but honestly, Brant's healing is better because he also has a shield on top of it. I mean, she kind of just, she doesn't feel like the best unit ever. And the thing is that Zhezhi is better than her when used with Jinhsi, because Zhezhi gives the ER. She's kind of only good on one team, and that one team is with Phrolova. And she is not really replaceable in the Phrolova team, but then Phrolova can just be like a sub DPS for like a Jiyan, or maybe even a sub DPS for an Augusta in the future. While Cantarella is just going to be like a worse option than Zhezhi in every other situation. You can try playing her as a main DPS, but it just pales in comparison to other units. And her being a Havoc and Resonance skill buffer is like, well, there's only one character in the game that does that, Phrolova. And then Phrolova's like half off field with her kit. So it's like, yeah, I would just say, again, this is a pull value tier list, guys. I don't think that Cantarella on your account is fundamentally going to change anything, because for her to change anything, she's also going to need Phrolova as well. And then at that point, if you're pulling 2 characters, it's like, we're not even talking about value anymore. And to the people saying, oh, well, why is Zhezhi an S? I already explained why Zhezhi is an S. It's because of her inherent skill that gives energy. Cantarella's inherent skill gives her personal damage. All right, let's move on. Now let's talk about Zani. Yep, I just did it. Zani is actually not a very valuable unit. She's not. You all know why? Because if you have the Zani team, you could have just not pulled Zani and just use Phoebe. Let's be real here, right? This is the Zani team. Just don't pull Zani and use Phoebe as the main DPS. This character is like the biggest wallet check I've ever seen in the game. Her teammate has a main DPS mode that just gets done whatever Zani was gonna do in the first place. If you had Phoebe, who's Zani's best teammate, there was no reason to functionally pull Zani. You pulled her only for gameplay and design. But for meta strength, this character is one of the worst pulls you can possibly make. Because to get her to meta levels, you had to pull Phoebe, but then Phoebe already gets the job done by herself. So it's like, what are we doing here? And yes, people will be coping. People will be saying L take. People will be saying I'm not right. But deep down, you know I'm right, and you just have sunk cost. Because you pulled this unit, you probably realize afterwards, damn, I already had spectral damage coverage. I probably could have just not pulled Zani, and then nothing would have changed in terms of my ability to clear content. And now you're in my chat crying about the rating. Guys, Zani is, without a doubt, one of the most unnecessary characters in the game. If I'm frankly being honest, Cantarella is more valuable for your account than a Zani. Because Cantarella will at least open up new possible synergies. This character's like, to get the building blocks for her, it's like the building blocks already got the job done. This is like a crafting recipe in a video game where you're going from 50 to 55%, but you gotta spend like a shit ton of money to do that. It's like, oh, do I really need that extra 5% for all of these resources? And that's what pulling Zani is like. If I'm frankly being honest, she might be at the top of C because of how unnecessary she actually is and the little benefit actually pulling her puts on your account. That's mainly it. Functionally, she's great. You'll have fun playing her, right? She's not a good pull because just take a 50% discount, just pull Phoebe, and then have your spectral damage coverage. You're gonna get a whole limited character, plus their weapon, to just deal spectral damage, which you could already do in the first place with her. Ladies and gentlemen, what are we doing here? Because I think a lot of you in chat specifically might have forgotten what this video is. Dumbasses, it's a pull value tier list. A pull inherently cannot be that valuable if it's taking what you can already do and do it like 2% better. I see a lot of sunk costs in the chat. Just so you guys know, I think you're all losers. Moving on. That's going to be the Zani rating. You can think of her as bottom of B, top of C. The main point and the main takeaway of this is that you don't need her. You've never needed Zani. She's one of the most unnecessary pulls in the game because Phoebe exists in her absolution state. It really just is what it is. Anybody disagreeing with me has a severe case of sunk cost fallacy. Prove me wrong. All right, now let's talk about Ciaccona. This one's going to be tricky. Ciaccona's rating is entirely dependent on one factor. Do you have Cartethyia? And so I think what's fair to do is for me to actually rate these two characters together. I think that Cartethyia on her own is pretty safe to be either top of A or bottom of S. I think the fact that Cartethyia can go ahead, perform with like a Sanhua, perform with like an Alto, perform with other teammates, and still get some pretty good, meaningful results, I think she works fine on her own, right? I think that she's either low A, potentially bottom of S, something like that. But the thing is that when you combine these two together, they're both S, right? Because they enable each other. And when these two teammates are combined, they get much stronger because she has way too much erosion stacks and she can't deal the damage. Cartethyia consumes the erosion stacks and boosts her own damage, and then actually greatly amplifies Ciaccona's damage as well. And so it's kind of like these two are both dependent on each other, which is like tricky. And the thing is, I would dare even say that these two are more dependent on each other than Zani is on Phoebe. Because Phoebe just has absolution state, have fun, she can do whatever she wants by herself. If you play these two units without each other, it's like you kind of feel like you're missing quite a bit. And so if they're combined, I think they pop in around here, maybe below Carlotta, something like that. But if they're like individual picks, they're probably in B. Yeah, they're probably top of B if they're individual. Like if you don't have one and you have the option to pull one, they're probably in B. Like Ciaccona without Cartethyia is kind of like dog ass. And then Cartethyia without Ciaccona, maybe she's bottom of A. But yeah, I think I'll rate them without each other for now because I think that's what I did for Phoebe and Zani. I think we'll put Ciaccona at top of B because she does have some main DPS potential, not like a lot. But then we'll put Cartethyia at the bottom of A because honestly, I think that her performance without Ciaccona is kind of like, I think it's worse than Jiyan in his best team. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure Cartethyia Sanhua is like worse than Jiyan Mortefi. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So yeah, now, guys, Cartethyia without Ciaccona is worse than Jiyan with Mortefi. If you're saying no, I think you're on drugs. S0, okay, all right. Well, I guess we'll do a gameplay demo so I can tell chatters how to play the game. Because I guess we have a lot of professionals over here. Certainly, yeah, this certainly isn't another group of simps. I already said the characters are S when they're paired together. Are you guys this butthurt that I'm not lying about the unit again? Oh, wait. We saw this exact response for Zani. The reality is, you guys just want me to lie to you about how the characters are doing. I mean, it is what it is, right? It's a little unfortunate, but it is whatever. So yeah, we'll run one team, again, without Ciaccona, so that you guys can see what I'm talking about over here for Cartethyia. And it'll be like, oh my gosh, wait, that's not actually that good. Okay, so we'll run the Cartethyia team first, because, yeah, y'all are bitching. All right. Do I need to keep going? Do I need to keep going? Oh, you want me to do the rotation where we swap back and then rebuild up the stuff? Oh, okay. We'll do about 10%. We'll do about 5% more damage on the liberation then. Arrow Rover? Okay, wait a second, guys. So, are you telling me to swap to Arrow Rover just so I can lose all of Shorekeeper's buffs, all of that? Wait, you guys want me to play Arrow Rover with Sanhua? That is literally worse than using Shorekeeper. All right, you know what? We'll do that, and then we'll start banning people. Because I can't have the retardation spreading any further. Because you guys will see one person ask a retarded suggestion. You'll have no idea what they're saying, and then just keep spamming it. Straight up. Like, you guys are out here pretending that Cartethyia is going to be able to build up 6 stacks by herself. Guys, you're talking about using Arrow Rover, talking about 6 stacks. How is Cartethyia going to make 6 stacks? How does Cartethyia herself apply 6 stacks of arrow erosion? Am I going to be sitting there, basic attacking, for 3 hours to build up 6 of them? Brother, you consume 3 while in the air. You build up 3 on the first rotation. You know what? Why am I explaining something to children? I should probably have asked myself that question, because I will explain what the problem is, and then you guys will be like, I think you're wrong. And then not actually give a reason for why. Okay. Somebody said intro, skill, and then 8 basics. 8 basics. What do you do, guys? What do you do? Intro, skill, 8 basics. I'm sorry, bro. Are you damaged? Are you damaged, brother? Guys, I'll even unlock the 3rd sequence node. Great, we got a 15% arrow damage bonus. Woohoo! Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Alrighty. You want to know what another chatter was saying when they were saying why I should use Arrow Rover? They said, why aren't you using Arrow Rover? He can convert debuffs. Oh, why aren't you using the guy that can convert debuffs? What fucking debuffs are we converting with the Sanhua on the team you reach? Like, this is what I mean. It's just like the average IQ of this chat dropped significantly. Like, brother, I'm literally telling you that this character is a lot better with Ciaccona, and that Ciaccona and Cartethyia literally buff each other. All right, let's look at the damage comparisons of Cartethyia with Sanhua versus Mortefi with Jiyan. I'd rather just be up in the air and not have to worry about doing more attacks on the fucking ground, bro. Okay, this should be better. That's about 40 seconds to do. That's about a minute clear. That's about 40 seconds to do about 60% of its HP. Oh, wait. You literally put me on the floor where she gets a 40% crit damage buff just for existing. So, keep that in mind. That's the bonus that she's getting. 40% crit damage just for existing. Now let's see what the Jiyan team does, because I did that rotation properly. Okay, let's see it over here, boys. Oh, wait. You know what? Jiyan's got a debuff as well. He's gonna have Mortify, the fusion character, against the fusion boss. He's gonna have that debuff too. Oh boy. Isn't this one gonna be fun? I don't know which one looks better to me, buddy. I don't know which one looks better to me, bro. Huh. I didn't even get my monkey on this rotation, by the way. Huh. All right. Who's ready to get banned? Who's ready to get banned? Mods, it might be time to start looking at chat, finding all the spammers. Get those retards out of here. I cannot deal with that level of retardation where the stream is literally getting sidelined because you guys are literally simping this hard over a PNG. To the point where you're sidetracking my tier list because I dare to say facts about the game. I dared say a legitimate fact about the game. That Jiyan with Mortify is better than Cartethyia with Sanhua. I used SK.
Oh, you need to use Arrow Rover.
I use Arrow Rover.
Oh, you need to make sure that you're doing the swap back, swap back. You need to swap back and reapply the arrow erosion.
We do that, and the damage still fucking is worse. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? I even fuck up the Jiyan rotation on the second one, and my monkey echo disappears. We don't get a 24% damage buff for that second rotation. It disappeared into thin air, and then we clear this one. Oh, sorry guys, I forgot the last part. Guys, we used Mortify, a fusion character, into the fusion boss. Oh, sorry, I forgot the last thing. That Cartethyia also had a 40% crit damage bonus. So, Jiyan did better with a fusion sub DPS into a fusion resistant boss. He also didn't have this 40% crit damage during his clear and then also got a better time. Literally, everything is stacked against him and he got a better time. Is this not proof yet? Is this not evidence? So, yeah. Getting back to the tier list after that segue, I do believe that after the demonstration, I might even be willing to put her down here. Frankly, if I'm being honest, I might even be willing to put her there. Yeah, if anything, after that demonstration, I am now going to bump her down. So, congratulations, guys. I think you got what you wanted over here. Great job, Cartethyia Sims. Well, you got all the reasoning for it right there. In fact, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to put him here now. That clear was so good, I want to put him here. like, what do you want me to say, bro? Like, that clear was so good, I want to put him up here. But I won't. I'll control myself. It's just, Cartethia's clear was so bad in comparison. Yeah, I want to bump her down here. I had no idea that Jiyan was actually going to no-diff her that hard. He absolutely completely ruined her existence in that comparison run. I'm going to be honest with you. And the thing is, I think the Cartethyia that I'm running is actually, like, well-built, too. Which is, like, the funny part. Like, they're both well-built units. She's at 50.1k attack. You can't even say this cart is bad. It's a 51k'er. That's pretty crazy. Low crit damage? Isn't that, like, the most ironic statement ever? Because y'all are saying low crit damage, like, this bitch just didn't get a 40% on the tower buffs. And believe me, with this buff, the crit damage is not an issue. You use Shorekeeper. Oh, sorry, guys. I think I did one run at the start where I used Shorekeeper instead of Arrow Rover, and then people were telling me to use Arrow Rover. Which one's it gonna be? Oh, wait, you just want me to run different combinations until Cartethyia wins, because you're loser simps. It is what it is. I will not appease that. We'll do our one test and move on. So yeah, Cartethyia and Ciaccona without being with each other, I think are a solid like B tier. But if you have them both combined, they elevate each other up to S. But for now, assuming that you are getting them separately, this is where we'll put the rankings. Try Verena instead. You go do it, pussy. You go do it, upload it to YouTube, then I won't watch it and make fun of you. All right, now we got Lupa. And this is going to be another sort of like partnership, hand-in-hand sort of situation, where Lupa's value is going to increase dramatically, once again, depending on the other characters that you have on your account. However, I think Lupa only has one dependency built into her kit. If you have Brant, Lupa's an S tier pick. And the reason for that is quite simple. Lupa has a lot of synergy with having a triple fusion team. If she has 3 fusion characters on her team, she gains things like an 18% attack bonus, 20% fusion damage, 15% fusion ignore, even more fusion damage built into her weapon, even more built into her Sonata set. She's like a buffer. She's like a version of Shorekeeper that also does a little bit of damage on the side. What she needs is a fusion character that can sustain the team. And that's where Brant comes in. When you have this core duo of Lupa and Brant, you can put in basically any fusion character in the game, except for like Mortifi, and the team will work. You want Changli? Great, you got the premium one. You got Encore? That works too. You got Chisha? Also works. It's just fine. And then there are no more fusion characters. So that's basically how the lineup works. You go Lupa, Brant, and then you have Flex for the third pick. And Lupa's buffs are so strong and so powerful that, well, it elevates any fusion team, even without Changli, over into the S. But that's only if you have Brant. Unfortunately, if you don't have Brant, then you will have to play your triple fusion team without a sustain. And most people don't want to do that. So I would say her value is like either at bottom of B or maybe even C if you don't have Brant. Because what she is a Encore support. She is a Encore sub DPS if you don't have Brant. Because that's pretty much the only team you're going to use her on. An Encore or a Brant sub DPS. But if she's a sub DPS for Brant, you're going to play the triple fusion team. So you never run like Shorekeeper, Lupa, Brant. You'll just never do that. So the only other teams you'll run is like Verena or Shorekeeper, Lupa, and then Encore. And then at that point, you're just asking yourself, did I pull this unit just to be a slightly better version of Sanhua and only for Encore? And the answer is no, that doesn't make very much sense for anybody. But she still is a bit of a best in slot over there. I would dare even say she might be like C, if we're being honest, without a fusion team, without Brant. But then she goes to S if you do have her. I would say this is probably a situation where you could just put her in the middle. I think she just goes smack dab right in B. But do note that that's with the context that we're taking the averages over here. And she's like a blend of like a support as well as like a sub DPS at the same time. It's a weird dynamic she's got going on. But when she works and you have all the ingredients you need, she does, in fact, cook. So now let's move on into the final pick. It's going to be Phrolova. Are y'all ready, ladies and gentlemen? I think this character is also a B, to be honest. She might actually be bottom of A. And the reason for that is quite simple. She is, without a doubt, one of the most flexible characters in the game. She can be a main DPS, but as we mentioned before for some other units, right? She can also be a sub DPS too, because of the fact that A, she does off-field damage, and she also has heavy attack damage amplification. And the thing is that she's usable as a Phoebe support, she's usable as like a Jiyan support, she's usable as a main DPS in her own team. And if I'm frankly being honest, right, if you pull her and build her, you can end up using her in a lot of different places in ways that you wouldn't even expect. And she's going to have some scalability into the future potentially because Augusta is a heavy attack damage dealer. And so the end result is like, well, she's got use cases with older characters. She's got use cases with like recent release 2.0 ones. And then she has use cases with to be released 2.6 characters. And so the thing is like, well, she's got the best in slot team, and then she's also flexible in a lot of other ones. You can use Phrolova on more teams than any of the other characters under her. I would say for a pull value tier list, a placement of A is quite fair, surprisingly enough. Think about everybody else on her. She's got more teams than them, way more options. But she's not that great as a main DPS unless you have Cantarella. But if you don't have Cantarella, you just use her as a sub DPS. And so it's kind of just, I'm going to rank her higher than Cantarella, because Cantarella's like kind of boo-boo cheeks if you don't have her, but then she's fine without Cantarella. So yeah, I think bottom of A over here. Maybe she'll be above Changli, because I do think that she's similar in flexibility to Changli, but I think her overall power level is a little bit higher. So yeah, that's going to be the tier list. I think we've shown a lot of the reasons for why we have the characters where they are. I know there are a couple of controversial listings, but as you can probably tell from the state of my account, I have all of these units. I've tested all of these units in pretty much all of the content that's available in the game, and these are my honest thoughts on the value, the actual like incremental gain you've gotten from pulling them, building them, and then adding them to your account. And yes, there are going to be some people butthurt, right? That I dared to say that Jiyan is better than Cartethyia in some situations. But it's the truth. We literally just played it out live for you today. And the thing is, that's why you got to stay wary of discussions regarding these tier lists and stuff like that. People will let their attraction, their desire for a character, cloud their judgment, and they'll just actively start spreading misinformation to you for some odd reason. I don't know why they're so obsessed with lying about facts in a game, but it happens very frequently, and you got to see what that sort of discussion looks like nowadays. And so, I'll reiterate once again, the point of this tier list is to indicate to you the value that a new character is going to give to your account. I've listed the various situations, the various interdependencies, and it should be no surprise at all that some units are stronger than others with less resources. And those are going to be some of the top picks. On the other hand, there are units like Brant that are arguably the best units in the game when you do give them a lot of resources. And that value is recognized as well. And we also made sure for units that have some sort of, some partner tailored lineups, right? We also made sure to cover their rankings, cover their ratings if they are partnered together. And so I've already put Ciaccona and Cartethyia in S already. It's just they're not there right now. So yeah, we've covered all of our bases over here. This might be a little bit controversial, or this might just be an opportunity to point and laugh at some really weird chatters. So yeah, that'll be that. Let me know what you all thought about this one, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.